Hey guys, welcome back to the 10-8 Fightcast. Trevor and Dylan here. We've been away. I've been globe trotting a little bit, went snorkeling in the reef, and then came back immediately. Some combat sports action in the good old city of Charleston, South Carolina, where we've had so many fun adventures and the good times just keep rolling.
It's a great time there, man. We haven't had a bad time there yet.
And we saw Conflict 53 Ladies Night. The first ever all-female main card for South Carolina. There were some great fights on this one.
Slobber knockers all around, man.
Bottom to top on this one. So there were some fights before the ladies' fights that featured, male combatants. And I just wanted to briefly touch on one or two of those because you got to do the announcing for those, man. The prelim cards, which you have not done in a minuto.
Your boy felt good getting up there again, man.
Yeah, as soon as you announced Fernandes' opponent, Dylan Baker, I was like... Still got it.
I looked over at you and you were just like, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, you gave me the sign. I was like, oh, that was it, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Even Jared looked at me. He just went, what the fuck was that?
Because Jared's never had you do it before.
He's never had me.
Yeah.
Like I've never announced for. But also, like the last time I tried announcing, it almost killed me. And I was like, I had to sit in a dark room for a week because it was way too close to the stroke. And,
that was.
But last night, I started to go, and Talia was like, "Oh, you felt good up there," and Nicole had never seen me do that before, and she was like, What was that? And I was like, I don't know.
That's
because
how we get down.
I stay kind of mellow most of the time now, and so it felt good to get excited, man. There's something about I tried to tell that girl that woman that tried to go after me for announcing, she tried her best, but man, you could tell, and it was her first time doing public speaking, anything like that, and I was like, man, kudos to you,
Yeah,
that's how I started.
Biting off a big piece of the baby.
That's how I started announcing. Was I was a matchmaker. Bruce couldn't make it one night, or Big Bruce from around here, and they're like, "Can you get up there?" And so I slammed my beer, slammed another beer there, and to the cage, and I just went, "I'm just excited to be here." And you can feel it,
Yes.
and that's why that room was so cool, man.
That
that conflict show, man. We felt the energy as commentators before. But to feel it as an announcer, and it's no offense to the other guy that normally does it. He does a great job. He had some similar health issues, and I hate to hear it. But man, you got to feed off that crowd a bit more. When someone's from Charleston, shit, can you feel it in your bones in that room, man? It's a good set at a comedy show. You can feel it in your feet. Dude, you could feel that room in the cage, and I'm like, damn, what a room to announce in.
You gotta have some kind of love for martial arts.
Yeah.
You can't, it's one thing.
But it's not just, it's the audience has to understand it.
I've met a guy.
Charleston people are proud as fuck of being from there, man. It's great.
I've met a guy, and I'm so sad that I can't remember his name right now, but when Tap Cancer Out had to become basically a super fight card for a little while instead of being a tournament because of COVID, they did a couple of live events, and one of them was in Charlotte, and I commentated that with Michael Allen. And it was 2 weeks before I had my knee surgery, I remember, and there was a guy who was doing the ring announcing there who had no idea what Jiu Jitsu was, but goddamn if he didn't sound like he was so excited to find out when he was on that mic.
Yeah.
This was a true professional, and I was like, what other stuff do you do? He was like, I do charity events or announcing Boy Scout boxcar races, but a majority of my experience is in pro wrestling. I'm like, oh, okay, well, you can tell me because you're a fucking pro. This guy had a goddamn full-fledged prom night tuxedo on for Tap Cancer Out.
Damn.
He was.
He went in.
He did go in.
Yeah.
He did go in. I feel so bad that I can't remember his name.
That was my first time announcing in a jacket, and I was like, "Oh, that felt good."
Right? Yeah. It feels
I've always I've always been kind of casual when I announced, and I realized that, and I was like,
I loved the Crawdads jersey. Once again,
that was so much fun.
The legendary Crawdads jersey. If only we had it sitting here.
I know, man. I should have kept it. I am so bad about keeping items of memories and shit like that. I'll keep a T-shirt that's 20 years old, but that Crawdads jersey now it's shit, man. What fuck? I gave that to one of my clients.
And there's
in
never
Florida
gonna be another
because he went to the local college, and I was like, oh yeah. I just didn't think about it, and I was like, fuck, man, that could have been so cool right there.
Well, you didn't know you were gonna have a podcast in a year when you gave it away. So, Fernando. Hernandez.
Man, so much fun to call his.
And Dylan Baker, where they were the opening fight, and it was a Muay Thai fight with small gloves, and it's the first time I've seen one of those live.
And it was cool. We've all seen videos. Like I was like, oh shit, this is my first like live small glove fight, and it was. There's a certain sound to MMA gloves.
It's a violent affair.
You don't really get to hear it at like a lot of amateur shows, like that cleaned up striking and stuff like that. So you see ONE FC has done like an amazing job of making small glove Muay Thai an actual sport. Like John Wayne Parr really started that in Australia. That's where the first like small glove, Thailand history, like small glove MMA fights started in Australia with John Wayne Parr, and then it became a bigger thing, and then. To see it live, I was like, shit, changes the game for some people.
Especially with somebody like we know Fernando. We've seen him fight.
We've seen him fight, and he does an amazing job of finding his way into the clinch, attacking with elbows, like working past people's punches. But Baker brought that just super sharp jab, and it changed the game. Like, Fernando could not really get past that jab. And it wasn't anything special. It's just like, that's what a small glove will do to your nose. And like I saw like the look on you see his nose was getting redder and redder throughout that fight. Like some of those first opening jabs were just clean on the nose, man. Like they really were. And
Baker did such a good job of keeping it a scrap.
Exactly.
He didn't let it get technical.
He didn't overcommit and like Fernando does a great job of being long and making people kind of like fall into his clinch.
Yeah.
Or he'll do a good job of staying tight and fighting in with like elbows. Like he'll work in past a lot of people's punches. But that jab of Baker was like a mile long. And those MMA gloves just kept Fernando back. And you see he was just hesitating or he was really having to work past. Like he would work into some very dominant clinch positions. He had a lot of great like over-unders. He was tying up the body, but it's more of a stall than attack position. Like you can get some knees off, but he couldn't stay in that hand fight range to really peel over for those elbows.
Not the big ones. He got a couple nice ones.
Like, I've seen Fernando fight with like small gloves, and he's one of my favorite guys to fight, like that I watch fight in the area. When I see him fight, I'm like, sick. I like watching him fight. He's got very clean elbow entries, but it's off of attacking people's guards. But they also don't have the jab and the small gloves that Baker brought, and he just could not get past that. So when he went to the clinch, it was two like more fine knees. They had some great elbow entries on the inside. They had some great hand fights on the cage, but you can see the small gloves were like the big change in that fight for Fernando.
Yeah, the power of Baker was kind of undeniable.
Yeah, it was. Like and that's also the big thing. Like, it's not much of a padding size difference. It's really not. But there is a difference to like that spread out feel. Like those gloves like bounce off.
Shock absorption.
Exactly. Like it does go a long way, and I feel like. Baker being a little bit more of a physical person, like that was his boy. His body and his jab were his biggest attribute. And I think some boxing gloves could have made it like a bit more even.
Plus the guard's bigger.
The guard is bigger, exactly.
Harder to get around.
And that's what I was talking about. Fernando's a great job of like splitting through.
Yeah.
He does a phenomenal job.
Really good
he had, but I'll still say this, man. He still had he did a great job, and like you call it, like he would parry off that jab and still come in with the elbow. But it just wasn't enough,
Kind of like a Philly shell style.
He did. Oh, and you're talking about I was talking about he did a great job of parrying past his head.
And then
he came back in with an elbow.
Yes,
super exactly why I like watching Fernando fight. Like he's the slickest elbow fighter out of Charleston Muay Thai. And I love that. Like he's got like this finesse with his elbows, and I love it. So he had great attacks off that. But I was very impressed when we talked about his defense. His high shell defense, he did that like he didn't really protect himself from the jab, but he protected himself from everything else.
Yeah, he showed a good adaptation to the gloves.
Yes, he still had a slick adaptation to his defense on the outside when he was stepping away. He did some great like high Z guard catches, and I was like, oh, cool. But that jab kind of led the dance for Baker.
Yeah, definitely one of those cases.
And, Baker's kept him out like at the end of Baker's power, where he's most effective. Like in the clinch. Baker didn't have as much of an arsenal, so he could kind of like start stalling the clinch out a bit. Baker really kept him at the end of his power.
You talk about the game of combat sports.
Also, the circle of the cage makes it hard to get your grounding back sometimes because, like, when there's a ring, there's corners,
right?
And so a lot of times, like Fernando's been very good. I've seen in the past of where someone will aggress into that corner and he pulls them in. And then turns, and then now he has them in the corner, and he really lets elbows go in there. And that cage it's a totally different game. And so you'll see a lot more people will like spread people out on that cage wall. Where on the ropes, that little bounce can become your turn off, where it's not there on the cage anymore. And I think that caused some problems for Fernando. You saw like Baker would kind of smother him on that cage wall a little bit. Like, so that was the fight I really paid, like, I mean, I paid attention to everything, but it was awesome to see like a small glove Muay Thai fight in a cage like that. We've seen that cage.
The intensity was high.
Like the intensity was high, very high. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
you can tell I definitely like watching Fernando fight. So
yeah,
like,
and
it is like I was watching a lot. And like Baker did a great job on the outside with switch hitting and not being too complacent on the outside.
He made it intense.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that, when a lot of people think about the game of martial arts in general, whether it's MMA, Jiu Jitsu, the game, you talk about technicality versus tenacity. Mm-hmm. Usually it's a bull and matador type situation where the more technical person is just able to use their
Fernando
tools.
Was the matador. Like he used a lot of tools.
It's nice to see sometimes that just pure tenacity can just
it absolutely does.
Technicality.
It's something I never had, and that's when I realized I was like, okay, you got to be like a special.
And you could tell Baker
is
like
a bull in a China shop.
A dog. Yeah, you could tell.
Yeah.
There were a lot of dogfights on the main card.
There's so many dogfights. But great job to Fernando and Baker
and
in that
for
fight,
putting on a super violent affair, kicking the card
just
off the right way.
Like that was an amazing way to open. And dude, the crowd loved it, man.
Yeah,
the crowd was there for it. So
especially in Charleston, you're always going to have a big, support, but. I mean, it's not like they were booing when Baker got the decision. It was a very close fight.
No, it wasn't.
And it could have definitely gone either way, in my opinion.
Well, also, I'll say that when in Charleston, like whenever it's a decision that doesn't go their fighter's way, you don't hear the crowd.
You don't
hear the crowd boo. Like it's a very special thing there, where I'm like, man, this crowd.
I've only seen it one time, and it was pretty egregious.
Yeah. And I think we were even calling it. We were just like, what the fuck just happened?
I think we've only seen it one time, and that's when it was pretty egregious to the point where even we were kind of questioning it. But I thought that the judging on this card for the most part was very good.
Yeah,
I will say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Great judges.
We had a little scuff up with the commission before the card started.
I mean, I haven't heard the audio. I kind of want to hear the commentary back for this one because we had to trade off a mic.
Yeah, I don't think the audio is very good. I mean, I've seen a couple people posting clips online of their fights, and I mean, you sound good, but like I have not heard myself in a single clip, so I don't know if I was just like not speaking loud enough. But you always speak loud enough.
I am such a loud little man.
It's always going to pick you up. But I don't know. So I mean, we had a scuff with the commission that probably compromised the quality of commentary.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, like it was a bummer. I love doing commentary there. Like we made it work for what we had, but yeah, the commission kind of caused a big snafu. Like I was going on, like I didn't realize what was going on until I saw what was going on, and I went, "Oh shit!" Like who's this? Like it was a totally different commission staff. Like every time I've gone to conflict, every time I've visited those shows, like I'm like, who are these people working? Like, it's been like Big Justin running the show,
And Justin's like one of the best in the business. There's a reason why they fly him out to Singapore for all the one shows. Because he's fucking really good at his job. And when I see him working a show, I'm like, all right, well, things are gonna go smoothly.
Brown, you're the man.
Things are gonna go smoothly at least. But I mean, I don't want to talk too poorly on the people that were working the show because they are his constituents at Gamma, and they're from the same organization. So, I mean, I will say that the judging,
the officials,
and the refereeing was amazing.
Always. I will say this, there was just a snafu with like that lady that was running the show. Even she was very apologetic. It seemed like because she didn't realize the snafu she caused.
Right.
And it was kind of like it's stressful in the moment. Then you go like. She was like, "Shit, we're sorry. We didn't know what was supposed to be set up and stuff." And I was like, man." So shout out to Justin for always like being on top.
And
of
the production just probably fumbled too because there was no monitor, there was no projector.
Yeah, we couldn't see it play. Like there's usually a replay we can see.
There wasn't shit. During the Wendy and Nunson fight, we literally had to stand up to see what was going on, and people behind us were kind of getting mad that we were blocking their view. And I'm just like, dude, we're just doing our best. Like, we're trying to do our jobs here. But anyway,
how do we reach these kids?
Regardless of our initial scuff up with the commission, I will say the judging was great and the refereeing was great. Jimmy Neely, Stephen Bontenebius, Did I get that one right?
You know, I always butchered on purpose.
Yes.
And he hates me for it. He always makes it like, he's like, why do you try to make me sound like so Greek? And I'm like, because it's funny. And I'll just like walk away. I know he's such a good guy.
Motherfucker, your last name's Montanevia.
I was like, look at you. You look like a statue. Like,
you literally look like your name would be Nico.
Yeah, yeah. I could call you Mr. Marble, and people would go, okay. Like,
but I thought that there were some fights that definitely we should mention. I think that we have always been of the opinion that the women bring it harder than anyone. When there's only one women fight on a card full of men's fightings on the amateur level, women really tend to fight hard as fuck. Like, they tend to go hard.
Like, they don't run out of fucking gas the same way. Like, even when women are getting tired and battered, like, they don't fucking break, bro.
Yeah, like, I mean, they're tough. And this fight was all women's fights, and it was like they were all trying to outdo each other with how game they could be to take on each other.
Yeah.
And it started off early in the night. I don't have the actual order of the bouts that we went in.
They still have the bout order, like we had it in front of us on the Instagram page. I was like, oh, we don't have a flyer from it still, or it's somewhere around here.
Yeah, we didn't have our program. I know that Melissa Sheppy was on the undercard.
So yeah,
right?
we had let's see, there's Amanda Andrews versus Audrey McQuestion.
Was that first, or was that before?
That was the first. Sheppy was after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that fight was... Oh yeah, because it was the first fight of the main card and kicked off in a big way.
In a big way, it was over very quick.
Yes.
And, like, it happened. I mean,
Amanda Andrews was she was from Rubles.
And I missed like the opening first guy. I was sitting down, I think, like when like that first strike landed, because I had to run over and give the mic off to the other girl, and she was asking, "What do I do?" And I was like, "What do you mean? What do you do? Just talk into the mic." And like I had to run back over. I think there was she was asking me something, and I sat down like right when she got dropped. I think it was a step in cross or something, right?
Yeah. Amanda was the girl from Grubel's Martial Arts.
Yeah, Amanda's the one from Grubel's, and she dropped Audrey off the bat with
No. She didn't drop her.
It was a head kick.
They had a head kick that wobbled her.
And
that's
then
the cross came
and then the cross came after. That's right. I sat down.
I missed the head kick, and you called it out. You were like, that head kick just landed, and I was like, oh, it did.
Yeah, because I came like walking up, and I'm like they had touched gloves, and I was sitting down, like getting onto commentary. Yeah, Amanda Andrews comes from Grubel's, and they're phenomenal kickboxers, like world class kickboxers, like win international titles in kickboxing.
That was the impression I got from her style.
Yeah, and so she like they have those inside like same side head kicks off of a strike. They're just masterful at it, and hey, for a debut with like Audrey, it was a clean debut of a fight. It's just, sometimes you make a debut and you walk into the punch. And, like, that's what happened. And, so yeah, like, there was, like, that initial wobble. Then there was the drop because she followed up with a cross afterwards. And that's what caused the first 10-8 count. And then Amanda just stepped in and it was a standing TKO. And it was like the ref pulled her away. Like, she fell over again. And I remember, like, you noticed a moment, which was, like, cool when I heard you talk about it. Because where you were, like, you saw a lot of compassion from Jeff Grady. Like, he's he's known as a very, like, intense coach. Like, a very passionate guy. And you saw this, like, compassionate side of him that you hadn't really seen before, I think. Or, you come from, like, Jiu Jitsu, which is, like, when someone loses, like, sometimes, like, oh, shit, your arm's broken. And the person can be, yes, my arm's broken. But, like, when someone gets knocked out and, like, hurt, like, you can see, like, when you've seen someone get knocked out, we've both seen it a lot, we've been around, it's happened to me, like, everyone wakes up a little bit differently. And, like, you see, like, there's, like, that initial kind of, like, fear, shock, surprise, what happened, and you saw, like, Jeff Grady. I kind of, like, want to hear, like, your side of it again of, like, what you said. You said, like, you were, like, you felt, like, the emotion, you were, like, oh, fuck, it's like seeing a parent pick up their kid that got hit.
It's hard for me not to talk about it now without even, like laughing or smiling, just to deal with how emotional it still makes me.
It's wild, yeah.
Because what happened was the fight was ended, and then I could see that Audrey was, like, looking around, and the door opens, and then Charleston comes through the gate, and she, like, comes over to Jeff, and she's, like, talking, and you can just tell that she's very like erratically asking, like, what's going on, and he's just like, like he was just like, he grabbed her gloves and turned her hands over and started just like trying to get her gloves off, and he was just like, just breathe, just calm down. And I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I could see the body language of what he was doing for her in that moment, and I was just like, I was kind of overwhelmed.
It makes you like
it
shows like this different humanity of coaching that people like. We as coaches sometimes hate what people will put themselves through, but it's also like someone has to be there to.
But that's what an amazing coach is. A coach is someone who is there for you when you win the championship belt, and also there for you equally
if you get knocked out in your debut.
And we saw both sides of that from Jeff at this fight.
People said it was like I threw in the towel in Talia's first fight because I knew it was coming next after that 10-8. I was like, I knew the head kick was, and I was like, like it's good to do this now, and it's tough,
It is, but I really was applauding him in that moment because I was just like, man, that was good that your first priority was on getting your fighter back to square one, making sure that they're all here and everything's all good, even before the doctor even looks at them or anything like that. Being their biggest ally in that type of situation, that's the nitty fucking gritty of coaching right there. That's the shit. I mean, like you were saying, I come from more of a jiu-jitsu background, and the worst thing that can happen in jiu-jitsu is that you get injured. That's the worst thing. But I think that losing in jiu-jitsu, even at the highest level, is less even when the stakes are higher, because people lose in jiu-jitsu so often. It's not like you can go out and get knocked out at sparring 18 times in a night, but you can get tapped 18 times in a night. So as a jiu-jitsu person, even if you're a world championship guy, you've probably been caught in the gym a couple times, so you know what it feels like. It's not a completely foreign feeling to you. If you're a debut fighter on a fight card that's never fought before, you might have had some hard sparring, you might have had some smokers, you might have even had a PKB that didn't go your way where you got kind of beat up, but very few people know what it's like to be rocked or knocked out. And for that to happen to you for your first time in front of dozens of your friends and family, if not 100 of your friends and family, it's a big emotional weight and a situation it's like being in a nightmare when you wake up and realize that's what just happened to you. I can only imagine.
Instagram always shows, and people don't being in this social media age, where I've just grown up around this, the social media age shows a fraction of what that moment really, really is like.
True that.
And there's no, you can't, you can see pictures, but when you see it in person like that, and you see the person go through that motion, you're just shit, people just don't know how that feels.
Exactly.
And it's not fun to wake up in a locker room.
No.
But,
or in the middle of the cage.
And, people are looking at you. It's not.
But that fight was, Amanda Andrews, like you said, Grubels probably has a little bit more experience before the debut than most fighters have. They're not going to see anybody out there.
And it's I always make my guys compete in PKBs. Now I'm getting guys to start competing in Kyokushin karate and stuff like that. And Grubels has a big history, I believe, of that fencing style of sport karate.
That's what I saw. The brief glimpse we got of Andrews, that's kind of what I saw.
You'll even see people out of Wonder Boy's gym or that upstate karate. They have an aggressive traditional martial arts style that coaches are great at grooming into different rule sets. Where Grubels is phenomenal at they stick to karate, international rules kickboxing, and unified rules kickboxing. And was this and that was a K1 rules fight.
We didn't get to see much of the rules.
But that's just sometimes and I think I was mentioning about the next fight we're about to talk to. It's actually two similar matchups but flipped. Where sometimes that kickboxing rule set greatly favors that more karate based person. If that Muay Thai fighter can't make an angle and sits in one spot for too long. And we saw with that opening fight was kind of the worst case scenario of getting hit 3 times by a person that's in 3 different places and you're stuck in one spot. And then you had the next fight where Sydney Ellar against Kristen Gifford, the slobber knocker I have ever called. I think one of the best, the best fight we've called at Conflict yet, right? The wildest, back and forth, most are you fucking kidding me kind of fight.
It's between this fight and not Josh Collins' fight on this card, but Josh Collins' fight on 50. Between like what's the most wild brawl.
Yeah.
You know? I would say that this is definitely the second craziest women's fight I've ever called.
Right. What was the craziest?
Oh man, I cannot remember her name, but she trains out of 4M Fitness. She's
it was for Fight For It?
Yeah.
Oh,
you remember that?
I think so.
Bro,
yeah.
that fight was awesome.
I know you're talking about. I might not know exactly the fight, but I know the fighter you're talking about.
Yeah. She's an older woman.
Speaking of which, I'll be at Forum Fitness on September 10th at 1 p.m. for a low kick and clinch seminar. Thank you.
It only costs?
20 for a member and 35 for non-members.
35 for non-members, so better see you there. Forum Fitness, one of the best spots you can train in the...
Such a cool facility. Have you been there?
Very cool. That's where they did Tap Cancer Out.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
it was inside
that's where they did it. Yeah.
What a cool fucking facility,
it's dope.
Right, dude?
It's dope, yeah. But yeah, Ellar and Gifford went to war in this one, and Ellar looked amazing in the first round.
She did.
She looked amazing.
Dropped Kristen Gifford
pretty hard. Yeah. A lot of referees would have probably, in an amateur fight...
Could have stopped it. Could have stopped it,
but did not.
And
I'm glad they didn't. And I'm glad they did not.
And you know, Ellar was on fire. And like she even said, she's like, man, I've never thrown that. Like I talked to her afterwards, and I was like, hey, what's your background? I saw you're from an Ishin Ryu school, but that's not just Ishin Ryu. Like there were a lot of elements of like that, you know, fluid karate style into it. But she's had like a handful of boxing matches, and it really showed in her hands. And that's why like those kickboxing rule sets are a fun matchup when you see people that can legitimately move with kicks and punches at the same time. So she was moving the whole fucking fight. I told her I was really impressed with her footwork in the second and third.
Yeah,
because that's when Gifford's like just horsepower and tenacity showed through. Like it was just like two trucks just pressing the fucking gas.
Pure
and like Gifford's
grit.
like was the one who like it just kept pushing and pushing.
It was one of the grittiest fights.
And Ellar, like she had a lot of savvy where she needed to put herself. She had to keep rolling with the punches, man. She had a lot of great counter shots. Like her nose exploded. You could see like her mouthpiece was falling out. She was like, "No, I got it," and she was picking it up, putting it back in, and like not even stopping the action a couple times. But Gifford was in her grill the whole time.
Never went away.
Like, even in that first round, we saw her, like, she got back up and she was like, fuck it, I just got to go back at her. And like, she did. Like, the second and third round, like, that started at the end of the first. We saw it. Like, Ellar was starting to have problems. Like, that last 10 seconds, I think the ref was, like, kind of, ooh, should I give her a break with a standing 8 right now? Like, he was close, but he knew it was like right at the bell, and he was like, oh, not yet. And then like Gifford picked back up where she left off in the second and third.
And speaking of, I mean, we're probably gonna. He had a lot of fighters on this card, so it's hard not to talk about him. But talking about Jeff Grady once again, he had a great moment in this fight too, before that third round where he was trying to get Kristen fired up, and he moved out of her way and pointed at
we were
Ellar
talking about that,
and was like, she's done.
Yeah.
All you have to do is do the same thing you've been doing for 2 more minutes. She's already done. She wants out.
That is Coach's Playbook 101, and like you can see like, and I think he saw like Gifford like in between like the second and third, or I'm sorry, like the first and second, like she was sitting upright, like she was in. But I think like Jeff saw she wanted to slump over a little bit, and he just went, "Don't you do that? You look at her right now." And I'll tell you, like when you've sat down in the corner, which is not always fun to do, man. It can make the legs really heavy if you're not used to it. You know, like I make my guys stand up unless they've been hurt, and then I gotta throw cold water on their face to wake them back up. But like your legs can get really heavy.
Whatever you're doing.
But like you see that person being dog shit tired, and you're getting up before them. It's a good feeling, man. It makes you motivated for that last round. And yeah, you see it like you get like I can see you getting giddy when you saw Jeff doing that. Like we were both calling it. Like I was like, we love this right here. Like Ellar is like. She's not going to quit, but she knows that she's tired. Like, she's accepted it.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the kind of shit that you see, and you're
just
like, okay.
was in her face. Like, she didn't give her an inch of space. Like, she knocked her mouthpiece out clean in the second.
That's true.
And there's a little break. And, like, you know, in that third round, though, props to Ellar. Her face was a bloody mess. Like, there was blood all over the place. her mouthpiece got knocked out, and like the ref stepped in, and she went, "No, I'm good," and she picked up, just put it back in, and then just went right back to jabbing. Like one of the most dog moments of a fight you could ever see in person.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure, one of the best fights we've called in Charleston, and definitely one of the best fights that I've called in my commentary career. I want to say the girl's name was Munson. I was trying to find it. I can't find it on my phone. It was Fight For It X, I believe. I think her name was something Munson, but that was just a little bit more wild and crazy than this one. This one had an extra factor, which is the blood. The blood.
Yeah, this was way bloodier.
This was way bloodier. But nonetheless, fight of the night in my books. And Kristen Gifford, you can't really say enough nice things about her in the sense that, you know, she was taking on a much younger opponent.
Yeah.
And she's not got all the experience in the world that someone of her age normally has going into one of these fights. And she showed up, and she was in shape, and she faced adversity and overcame it. And that's, I mean, what more can you ask for from a fighter in your camp than those things, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that was probably the standout performance of the night for them in terms of, I mean, Amy Peduto and Anna both had great fights, but they kind of did what they always do, and they did it successfully. I mean, that's not just taking anything away from them. It's just that this was a fight that could have easily gone a different way and completely changed over the course of a very like epic saga.
Yeah.
You know, being told before our eyes. So, very good fight. Haley Lowry took on...
Was Sheppy before that or after that?
Sheppy was second fight. We've long skipped over Sheppy now that I think
we
about
did?
it.
Oh,
yes.
yeah, because like the one that we have on Instagram...
It's going this way, so it's left, right.
I dropped the ball on that one.
It's okay, it's okay. We've got to talk about Melissa Sheppy.
Okay, we definitely got to talk about Melissa Sheppy against Stephanie Kofroth, who was from... Kofroth, like, apparently Icebox is just, they just have some grit out of that gym, man.
Yeah, that's their style. Their style is to dog. It's to fight like it. Oh, speaking of dogs, you see Ellar's Instagram post after the fight?
No.
she made a post that was like an x-ray of like a chest, and she's like, got my post-fight x-rays back.
Oh,
turns out I got my dog in me.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I've seen that meme.
Dog in me, and then a picture of her with her nose all fucked
very
up.
Fitting.
Yeah, I thought that was so good. But dude, Kofroth fought like a dog too.
I gotta say, Melissa Sheppy, holy shit, like I love the continuous volume, always stepping. She had a lot of great active head movement. Mm-hmm. She was always changing levels, and she was forward. I mean, she really pieced up Kofroth.
Very dominant one-sided decision.
Very steady base, like hands down,
and
even across the board. And
for me, someone who's watched her compete in Jiu Jitsu,
I've seen her fight MMA. She's always been a grappler, and I was like seeing this side of her. I was just like, holy shit, what a problem.
The way she competes in Jiu-Jitsu is very similar to the way she competed in this fight. Forward always, pressure always, and just walking people down. Like the women in Jiu-Jitsu, especially like after a certain weight and up, they stop pulling guard. Mm-hmm. And they refuse to. And Melissa Sheppy is definitely one of those competitors that never will pull guard. Yeah. And a lot of her jiu-jitsu matches are mostly standing because of it, because she's impossible to take down, and she just walks people down. She just walks. And she walked Kofroth down for every
What I like
second
is the range of strikes that she had.
Very much
She would punch short, punch long, punch over, punch under, punch down, punch up, kick over, and always moving, always have her head offline. Like it was like a perfect fight for her, to be honest. Like I'll say this, like you want to watch a fight where it's neat to see someone hit like a cadence and stride from the get-go, and it doesn't change. Mm-hmm. Like you can see like her rhythm just never stopped. Like she would always, I call it staying on the X. Your shoulders and hips are always on an X, and your head's always on a V. It's like a very traditional like headwork pattern, like two little cadences at once. But you see everywhere she stepped, there was something ready to go, and she just never broke from that. Like even when she got hit, she just rolled with the punches and kept going. Like didn't let it break her stride at all. Yeah, and I say like that'd be a fun fight to go back and rewatch from like an outside angle. I want to watch that one again.
Definitely, especially with a camera, like having a better view of some of those exchanges would be nice because there were a lot of
like it was hard for me to like say like what's going on in the fight because I was like Sheppy's just fighting a perfect fight.
Yeah,
like,
it's one of those ones where like so much is happening.
We had to keep talking about like what Kofroth needed to be doing and like how tough she is because like Sheppy like there were no chinks in the armor for that fight.
No.
Yeah.
Haley Lowry versus Stephanie Calderon. I thought this one was great.
Great fight.
Muay Thai, full rolls.
Yep.
Calderon had a humongous shot.
Oof.
A huge shot.
Yeah.
That would have finished a lot of people, but Haley Lowry showing
grit. She got hit with that right hand. And you saw her like turn and like stiffen for a second, and then she's back in that fight. And like she got the standing
almost
eight
like she had
her.
to like balance herself.
Ooh, like she did the Michael Jackson, and then she's like, "Oh, shut him back in the fight." And you know that like there's a downside to finding that sweet shot in the first round because Calderon didn't do anything besides look for jabs and that right hand. Like she was fighting a box to kick fight. Then Haley Lowry. Like, from her coach, Lamont, like, he just told her, he was like, okay, it's no longer a boxing to kick fight. Because Haley was doing what? She was measuring with jabs and crosses. She was kind of punching like a T-Rex. And that's how Calderon got that right hand to uncork right behind her ear.
Calderon's long, too.
Super long. So then Lamont was like, all right, we're turning this into a kickboxing match. And Haley came out with that volume in the second and third. And it was just... relentless kicks,
she was kicking like Farang from Tekken, dude.
Holy shit, Haley Lowry. Like, I haven't seen, like, it's been, like, Omar Hassan maybe at a kickboxing match a couple times. Like, we've seen Omar Hassan do that a couple times. But, like, Haley Lowry did a great job of mixing in punches inside of those kicks. Because Calderon was trying to jam in behind those kicks. And then Haley had either a short punch or a knee ready to put Calderon back out into that kick range. And she was doing a great job going, like, same side, then to re-teep, and then right leg would kick through. She was switching stances off of it. Like, Lamont Chappell gave her an amazing talking to in between rounds. That was, like, I talked to him, I was like, man, that was an awesome, like, good job, coach. Like,
speed.
It's that speed of it, too, yeah.
Her athleticism
and you can see,
pretty crazy.
that was, and she is thick.
And
she was
respectfully,
moving too.
respectfully, Haley.
Yeah, respectfully, like you're jacked. Like I was like, she's looking like Hannah Goldie. Like,
she does have that Hannah Goldie frame. Definitely, she is a lot more athletic than most women.
Yeah,
I would say, even at that weight class, and that's a weight class full of like athletes. You know? And she's more athletic than most. So. I mean, she just continues to impress. She's a local standout in this area. I think we have a lot of people that we know that train directly with her. I know that Wendy and Unson trains with her a lot because they're so close, Greensboro and High Point. So I'm sure we will be seeing a lot more of her. After that, we got into our title fights of the evening.
3 phenomenal title fights.
They were all great, First up was Kayla Hennessy out of the Charleston Muay Thai team taking on Amanda Hedberg, who I believe they brought in from New York, or was that Austin?
No, she's from Georgia.
Columbus.
Yeah.
She was from Against the Grain MMA, right. That's a good team, actually. Nickname Headcase, one of my favorite fight nicknames I've heard.
I'll say I can see why, because Homie's face did not change at all during that fight. Like, there was, like, no emotion on her face. Like, she just came forward that whole time. That didn't go her way in the first and second, but it paid dividends in the third, fourth, and fifth. Like, Kayla Hennessy, like, I'm impressed with, like, her length and how well she moves, and she switch hits very well on the outside.
Her cage circling was
but it's also, that's kind of what was the downfall in the third, fourth, and fifth. Like, when you're in a boxing ring, like I said, like, those four corners, it's a different game. Like, you can stick people in place. So, like, you can be 8 cars wide when a person's stuck in a corner and, like, not let them out and keep them boxed in. And she didn't have any opportunities to pull herself to the middle. Like, every time she pulled herself to the middle, Headcase would just walk her forward. Correct. And you saw it, like, she was starting to have that back, like, she kind of guillotined herself to that back cage wall. Like, that circle cage is tough to read. Like, it doesn't stop. And so she kind of got closer and closer to that cheese grater a little bit. And then, like, you know, the more she got stuck to it, the more she couldn't get off of it. And so, like, that, like, and I got to say, like, the first 2 rounds were phenomenal from Kayla Hennessy. Like, she didn't get touched that much. Like, she was really touching up, I keep saying head case. Hedberg, you know. I'm just like, oh, what's her name? I meant Hedberg. Yeah, but head case always pops in because, like, the first 2 rounds didn't phase her. Like, she was there for that long fight. You know?
Yeah, great coaching, I would say.
Phenomenal coaching from her corner
great
as well.
Coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about how Fernandes is such a good elbow fighter. I was actually really impressed with Kayla's elbows in this fight. I mean,
very impressive elbows.
Even when she was getting tested in the 3rd and 4th, when it did get close, she found them to be a lot more reliable than her punches for helping her get out of those situations, you know.
And I'll say this, man, it was a very close fight. However, it was just like, I think you started to see, like, that pressure of Hedberg is what won the round. Like, they both got pretty even on, like, finding elbows on each other when it became close. Like, she was also ready to fight in every area. Like,
it was one of those fights that's, like, close on the scorecards, but not close in how it played out.
Exactly.
As time went on,
like, it became more obvious.
The first 2 rounds,
but still, like,
3rd round was the close one.
3rd round was very, and I think we even said it depends on how you look at that 3rd round. And I said a few things about that 3rd round where I think it was just like, I was like, I think that's where the consistent pressure was showing. Because it was like they were still pretty dead even on strikes.
I thought so too.
But you know what? If you're the person going forward with the pressure and your strikes keep putting that person more and more on that back pedal, like, then you're the one that's going to come ahead. Like, you can be fighting backwards, but you have to be showing visible damage. Like, that person's face has to be ripped off. Like, it's true. Like, you have to be rocking that person. Like, you know, exactly. So that was just like where Hedberg's, like, consistency really showed off in that 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and that's why I was like, man, it's on a really small margin that she got that 3rd round.
I agree.
Yeah. Otherwise, like, phenomenal fight to watch. Like, actually, I really want to go back and rewatch this fight card.
Yeah, I'm definitely waiting on Jared to send us the code so we can rewatch this one and see what that commentary actually sounded like, because I really hope our commentary came through on the next fight, Addie Bellinger versus Wendy Anunson, because that was, as quick as it was a phenomenal fight, in my opinion. The lone women's MMA fight of the night because of the other one getting scrapped right before the card. But it made up for being the only women's MMA fight by being an incredible fight with Wendy Anunson catching a so slick armbar off of some back control. I mean, she looked like she was on her way to a submission victory, and then suddenly Addie Bellinger does the exact textbook back escape that you would want to see a fighter commit to, and then Wendy perfectly counters as if she was anticipating that escape the entire time. Snaps that armbar on, and it was like immediate panic tapping on that armbar.
Like, and I literally just sat there, and you can probably hear my commentary go, I was like, whoa! Like, it was just that fast. Like, I couldn't, like, Wendy is so good at, you could see even from, like, her wrestling pressure on the feet to keeping that body lock tight on the feet from the get-go, and her wrist drives that she had, like, it was a very, like, grinding, continuous, smothering pace. And I think what you saw, like, Wendy felt was that, like, she felt the pace slowed down because she was matching. She had to, like, I'm so bad. Addie. Oh, Addie. I was about to say Ellinger. Bellinger. Sorry. I think she recognized, like, she was trying to catch up, and then she slowed back down. And Wendy felt that, and that's how she just popped over for that armbar, because, like, you said it was textbook. She was gift wrapping from that rear naked choke.
Yeah, so basically the idea is, like, there's a hand coming in trying to choke you, right?
I feel like I'm about to text Kelly right now and just be like, hey, can we come by with the camera and you guys break this down?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, so the reason why I was so keen on this is because this is an escape that I use all the time. So the idea is there's a hand coming in to choke you here, to, like, wrap your neck up. So what you do is you take both of your hands and you go 2-on-1, like you're grabbing a baseball bat, and you're just going to move the arm from the side where it can choke you to the side where it can't choke you. That's step 1 of the defense. Step 2 of the defense is you have to sink down, like, past where their legs are no longer hooked in you, and then you kind of spin into their guard. So now you're on top of them, and they're, forced to play guard against you. This is a situation I find myself in a lot in jiu-jitsu, so much so that I'll often, if I'm having trouble dealing with somebody on in mount on me or in side control, I'll give them my back in hopes that they'll try to choke me and I can use this escape and then put them on the bottom. So when I saw Addie going for that, I was like, this is a very good escape. It's super high percentage, and then there's a couple counters to it, and one of them, and definitely the most devastating, and the one that most brown belts and black belts get me with when I try that escape on them, is the armbar counter. And when Wendy hit that, I was like, my mind was blown, because it's a situation that I've seen play out in the gym, but it's one of those things where you have to have that super high level grappling awareness to be like, I'm doing X thing, they're doing X thing, I have to be ready for XYZ thing. You know, she was like 3 steps ahead throughout that entire exchange from the fucking get-go on the outside trip. She was just 1 step ahead. Every single reaction that Addie had, Wendy had an immediate answer for, including the final sequence, which ended in that armbar. So, I mean, I just spent longer describing the armbar than the entire fight. Yes, but
it was just that great.
It was that great. Shit. It was that great. It was one of those moments where I see somebody and I'm like, this person is. It's actually, I'll say, I have not felt this feeling since I saw Sandoval fight last, where I was like, this person is ready to be a professional fighter, and they're ready to win at the professional level and probably have an insane run.
Yeah.
And I feel that Wendy,
I really enjoyed being able to
saw her fight,
sit down and watch you call what was happening, because I was like, I recognized like the basic defense, but then you caught on to what Wendy was setting up. So I really enjoyed watching that like 4 seconds unfold, because that 4 seconds when you were calling it, I was like, son of a bitch, he's right. And it felt like 5 minutes, because I could just watch where Wendy was going to from what you were calling. I was like, oh, neat.
From the get-go, Addie, tries to turtle up and give her back. What does Wendy do? She goes for inside wrist control and folds her arm, and that's just like going to shut down so many defensive tools from the turtle. You can't post now. Mm-hmm. You can't try to climb up. You've got that. It's basically like if you try to do anything, you're going to get Americana'd by your own weight. So it's like, it's such a fucking strong. As soon as I saw her doing that, I was like, the grappling awareness for Anunson is so high, and from where she was when I first saw her fight like a year and a half ago to now, even though she was winning fights back then too, it's a completely different girl now. I mean, it's a completely different fighter. Physically, she looks completely different. Her intensity, her speed in the cage, and her fight IQ is just getting to that level where it's like, she's fucking ready, and she's got a fucking amazing team. Yeah. And if you're talented and you have an amazing team behind you, you've got more than most people in the sport have. Mm-hmm. So I think that Wendy Anunson, the bone saw, is definitely somebody to keep your eye on. I think by this time next year we might be seeing her in one of these bigger women's shows like Invicta or maybe even the Contender Series. After that, of course, we had Amy Peduto and Anna Toole co-main events. Amy Peduto taking on former foe of Anna Toole, Julie Cohen, and Cohen came out with a much different strategy this time around than she had against Toole. The strategy this time around, of course, was very clinch heavy in the early rounds, trying to tire out Amy, but it is so hard to tire out people from that school. Yes. Any school that's as focused as they are as when it comes to being in shape. Yeah.
Julie Cohen, she kind of kept going back to the well on something that wasn't exactly working. And by the time that coaches wanted her to do something different, it was too little too late. And honestly, they really still kept going back to where when you see Amy, and as I say, like Amy all business Peduto, because god damn, like she just doesn't stop.
No, she doesn't. Yeah, and we knew that from her fight with
fight we've seen her in full rules fights, and she fights almost more of like a full rules Dutch Muay Thai fighter. And you can see Julie Cohen way more of a traditional Muay Thai fighter, really looking for long, just like not so much jabs and crosses, but 2x4s to get elbows off of. Like, if you see Amy, she's always forward, but Jeff has always talked about like always trying to improve head movement, and she was always just enough off. And I talked about Fernando earlier as well, being offline to find the counter elbows. Like, Amy was putting herself just offline with those overhands, uppercuts, and stepping off with angles. And Julie Cohen was kind of like pushing herself over into like a fucking glass whirlwind pit of fists and kicks and knees from Amy. Yeah. If that makes sense. Like, like she kept falling into a tornado.
It's just like, like I said during the fight, having a strategy that's focused on something other than winning rounds doesn't do anything for you if you're not winning rounds. Like, I always talk about this when we talk about Sean O'Malley, but a lot of people, when they fight Sean O'Malley, they're just fighting in a way where they hope they can injure him, not necessarily win rounds. Julie Cohen was fighting in a way where she wanted to try and
cut her out.
Yeah, she wanted to tire Amy out.
Yeah, Amy out, yeah.
And Amy wasn't getting tired.
Yeah.
And when you are doing that and it's not winning you rounds and your opponent doesn't get tired, it does look a lot like you don't know what's going on.
And like you called, like you saw, like Julie was trying to hang on to Amy
she
along the clinch
really
wall.
trying to.
She really wanted to like anchor her down. She wanted to try and tire her out, but Amy just wasn't playing into that game.
I mean, they all have abs, like Amy, Anna, Nikki, Kayla. They all are ridiculously in shape. Fernando, Roberto. I mean, everybody who trains there could probably run a fucking 5K, a triathlon, do a swim in the Charleston Sound or whatever, and then go fight. I mean, they are all ridiculously in shape.
You're gonna see Jeff Gray in a couple years just make like a Charleston triathlon.
That isn't a fight.
Yeah, like last bit of it, you have to spar. Like, wait, what?
Amy was like a buzzsaw.
Buzzsaw the whole
and it was
time.
It was all Julie could do to just stop the buzzsaw from coming forward at all.
Yeah, what she ended up using as like she wanted to use as an offense was just enough to keep her off of her to not have a worse night than she.
It also doesn't look great for you when the strategy that you're implementing to tire out your opponent tires you out before it does them. That's not a great look, because as the fight went on, Amy started bullying her in the clinch because the strength started to waver because she started to get more tired than Amy was. So
I think the biggest thing that also comes down to is like the pace they spar at. I don't think Julie has anyone at that gym, and it's like not a knock on like some more traditional Muay Thai schools. They all kind of fight at a sometimes like 1 or 2 strike at a time kind of cadence to go into that clinch.
Yeah.
Where, in America, especially the East Coast, you're going to see a lot of boxing heavy, just hard-working motherfuckers just coming at you the whole time.
Like, I feel like a lot of American Thai schools are like, especially when they're ran by, no offense, Trevor, some white guy, they're usually like, Thai guys. I usually like Thai people.
The most untraditional Muay Thai coach, but that's also, like, we talk about martial arts, like, I'm teaching more out of a rule set.
Like, a lot of Muay Thai coaches you've probably experienced are like, they train their fighters to be more slow starters.
Yeah.
Because that's how it's done in Thailand. But in Thailand, it's done that way because of betting and gambling.
Yeah, and like it's
not because of like it having any kind of real impact on the fight.
And like I tell people, like there's a cadence for everything. There's a cadence for tournaments. There's a cadence for a one-off fight. There's a cadence for a 5-round fight.
Right.
And you kind of have to train for like that cadence of what you're getting ready for. Like if it is a 5-round title fight, then like you might not be able to start off like super fast the first or second round.
I think it was Jack Slack who said that if you feel that you're a certain type of fighter, if you feel that you're like that you have a game as a fighter, if you can't implement that game for 5 rounds, then that's not your game. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, that's like the biggest knock on Conor is that fighting ideally in ideal circumstances.
It's 30 seconds.
He's got a minute in him when he's fighting his game. Mm-hmm. So I think that finding out how you can deal with an opponent that's as voluminous and as aggressive and as powerful as Amy for 5 straight rounds.
Jeff does a great job of like recognizing like everyone has like a set cadence and like that gym has its own cadence, and how do they make that cadence work through other people's
They're
fights?
Very aggressive gym.
Very aggressive.
I mean, the style in general is like take the fight to them early and often. And throughout the entire
when Jillian was getting ready to fight Nikki, I was like, you are going to be in this person's face the whole time because they're going to do that same thing to you.
Right.
And when those two fought, it was one of the dopest fights I've seen.
I wish I could have seen that one. That was in Myrtle Beach, right? Yeah. So, other than that, Anna Toole took on Chantel Perry out of Austin, Texas. And
a rematch.
Oh, really? This was a rematch? Okay.
Yeah, from the qualifiers in Denver.
Oh, so a very recent rematch.
Very recent rematch. Yeah, that's why the name was so familiar. No.
Oh, okay. So
Anna came up in that to, I Charleston Manor.
Oh, okay, right. Who's also in South Carolina.
Who's also and it's wild. Like the two best females in North America right now are out of South Carolina.
Yeah,
which is
pretty cool.
Freaking awesome to see, man. It's really rad.
But Anna has another standout performance as the brighter the lights are, the more people are there to see her.
And dude, Anna was like like I said early on, I was like, I don't like how low her hands are, but like Anna does a really good job of being a low hands fighter. Like, you know, it's not something that I do with my guys, but like Anna is so fast that she does it very well, and like she was baiting Chantel into like these counters, and like you said, like there's like as you said, you're like, that's the fastest low kick I've ever seen, and like you were literally like, you said it like 3 times in a row. You looked like the guy in Saving Private Ryan picking up his arm, where you were like, did anybody else see the leg kick?
Honestly, I mean, I'm sure it looks one way on the stream, but I mean, I've seen a lot of people that are very good at low kicking kick live.
Yeah.
And I've seen and heard a lot of kicks in my time.
Her defense to offense was so fast in that outside kick range, and it really added up as the fight went on.
I've never seen somebody swing a fucking leg kick and get back to a neutral base standing faster than that.
Yeah.
Like, and it was hard too. It's not like it was a tap either. That fucking thing was like a baseball bat. And I thought that as good as Anna looked, I think that Chantel had a great showing.
She had a great showing as well.
And she never.
Anna just kind of like led the fight.
She was never defeated or broken by Anna. She was fighting Anna the whole time. And if they would have won another 5 rounds, who knows what would have happened? You know, it was not a completely one-sided affair.
Yes.
Like the Amy Peduto fight.
That was way. Yeah, the Peduto fight was way more one-sided. But I'll say this:
Anna definitively won. I don't want to.
Anna hands down won. Yeah, but I don't think she lost a round, did she? But like it was tooth and nail the whole time to the end of the round.
Maybe she lost the second round, or maybe I'm thinking of the first. But I would say that it was 5 rounds, nothing on at least one scorecard.
I think maybe there's one round like Chantel landed some longer strikes.
But it's one of those times where it's like you can have 5, 10, 9 rounds and be like, well, this person still had a great showing. They still looked good in the fight.
Yeah.
You can still see that they're like very high level.
There was like both fighters were in the fight.
It's just fucking tough to look like that against Anna Toole, and that's why I pay her that compliment.
Yeah, she was very clean the whole fight. She had great composure. Like really like a world-class Muay Thai fight.
And that's it for Conflict 53. I mean, I honestly had a fucking blast at this show, and I think that the ladies put on a hell of a fight card. And Jared, once again, you've put on a phenomenal show, and you offered something unique, which I feel like a lot of promoters are not willing to do.
Yeah.
But between this and offering things like Small Gloves Muay Thai and the other things that he does, I feel like he takes risks and he listens to what people want to see. And I think a lot of promoters just don't do that.
No.
So it's got you got to pay the respect to the man, Jared Williams, for putting on once again a phenomenal show in Charleston. Can't wait to go back. I think we're going to be doing November 5th, as long as Fight For It's not on that day.
You said that might be November 12th.
I can't remember if it's the 12th or the 5th that Fight For It was looking at, but it's one or the other. It would be cool to do 2 weekends in a row.
Yes.
Especially Fight For It and then Charleston or Charleston then Fight For It, because I love both those promotions so much. But as long as they're not on the same day, then we will be doing both, I assume. But then let's talk about UFC Paris.
Right.
I wasn't even going to talk about Nazareth.
I don't blame you. Oh, Keem Buckley's fighting some Imavov.
Yeah, they're doing this. They're doing this weird thing where they're putting people who have like fought before on fighting on the same cards lately. Like they normally do that, like because people are if they fight, they're coming back around the same time.
Oh,
yeah, because it's in Paris.
I'm feeling a case. Are we recording right now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize. Well, I'll just say no. I'm feeling that we might have to pull the TV in there and get a case of Trulies and some White Claws and have a no loss Saturday at the gym.
Oh, yeah.
Well, no, because I'm gonna be at the gym finishing up the borders for the mats anyways.
I can't believe Buckley's not on the main card.
Yeah, that's wild. He's on a winning streak right now. Right? Well,
he got knocked out by Chirico.
That's right.
He got knocked out by the guy who's fighting in the co-main or whatever. Alexei Chirico.
That's right.
The Italian job. That's probably, Buckley is fighting another fucking killer. I mean, he's getting to that point in the division where it's kill or be killed to get to that top 15.
Yeah.
And they've got him fighting on the Not the early prelims. There are no early prelims from what I can see. So yeah, he's fighting on that prelim card in France at 12, and
John McDessie and Charles Jourdain are on the fight card. Those guys are always fun to watch. I mean, I love Charles Jourdain. Exciting. He kind of got out muscled in his.
I think
fight.
he won that last fight personally.
I think he kind of handedly got like
versus Burgos. You're talking about Burgos?
Burgos. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I thought he won.
Oh no, who? You thought that Jourdain
I thought
won?
Jourdain.
So he landed great combinations, but it's just like I know a bullying when I see one, and that goes a long way with like that. Like you can just see Burgos was getting eaten alive in the third round, and he got eaten up a little bit at the end of the second. However, like Burgos was kind of just bullying him around that cage, where it was a thing about like Rocky 1. Like you kind of see like. It's like he's like you see Rocky kind of get bullied around the ring a little bit, because he's the smaller guy. Like every fight Charles Jourdain is in is like a fucking Rocky movie, because like he's not the biggest featherweight, but he's also too big for bantamweight.
Way too long.
So like and like when you see Burgos in that fight, I'm like, how are these guys in the same fucking weight class? Yes. Like it really like you look at Burgos and I'm like, how does he look like a fucking welterweight against this guy? Like it kind of just looked like his punches were just bouncing off of him the whole fight. Like, and it's like Jourdain looked cleaner. He looked way more active. But it's just like in Jiu Jitsu. You can be throwing up submissions from your back, but you technically didn't win, or you did, depending on if the referee is Brazilian or your teammate. Or something.
I agree that it is definitely a case of power versus volume in that fight, and it was definitely the damage that Burgos was able to do. That he handedly won the third.
Yeah. Jourdain, I'd give Jourdain the third, but not the first and second, because Burgos kind of just kept pushing.
I thought it was first and third for Jourdain because Jourdain just picked at him a little bit more in the first.
Right.
Shane landed too much in the second for me to say it went that way. But yeah, I thought it was a close fight, so I'm not really that upset about it. But I do think that Jourdain will be bouncing back on this one against Nate Wood. Nate Wood was one of those guys who was a super hot prospect when he came into the UFC, and then as soon as he hits that like UFC level talent, it's like
this is a good fight for Jourdain.
I think it's a good fight for both guys, but it's especially a good fight for Jourdain to come back and start rolling back towards that featherweight, especially now with Burgos gone from the UFC. Then Nasrat, this should be an easy fight for Nasrat.
Like when I saw this matchup, I was like, man, I like John McDessie, but damn, this isn't going to be his night, I think.
John McDessie's biggest achievement in the UFC is so far is getting spinning heel kick knocked out by Lando Venata. I mean, that's like what most people know him for. So I feel like this is a really big give me fight for Nasrat, who's not looked bad at all in the UFC the whole time he's been there. Alessio Di Chirico versus Roman Kopylov. I mean, this guy, Roman Kopylov, is a nightmare wrestler. So, Di Chirico, coming off of a loss, he knocked out Buckley, of course. Now he's coming off of a loss, and he could easily, if his wrestling's on point, he gets wrestle-fucked to a decision by this guy, Kopylov. The Russian, those Eastern Bloc wrestlers, they're just becoming more and more common on these smaller cards. You can't underestimate them. Di Chirico, man, he's got these crazy ears. He's got like these insane Italian ears. I don't know what it is.
Those sonars.
This is where it gets a little juicy.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the co-main.
This is why you're tuning in.
Yeah, this is why I'm tuning in. I'm gonna have like these other fights on in the background while Vic and I play Home Improvement at the gym.
Right, and then it's time to sit down.
More expansions coming soon.
You sit down and crack open a Modelo brewed for those with a fighting spirit and watch this fight take place. Robert Whittaker versus Marvin Vettori. I think this one is going to be really fucking good.
I think Whittaker's going to stop him in the third.
I wouldn't be surprised. Marvin's unstoppable, though. I will say that Marvin,
he is but he's too willing to get hit.
I know you're not very familiar with Dungeons and Dragons lore, Trevor. So I'm going to educate you.
Honestly, I don't know a fucking thing.
I'm going to educate you. Marvin
Dungeons and Dragons, you can play Metallica to get extra points. Is that it?
It's not too far off.
Not too far off.
Yeah. Vittori is an orc. He is an orcish motherfucker, and orcs have a thing.
I saw the movie Bright, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, okay. So you can see the resemblance. Yeah. Orcs have an ability where
like he snarls the whole fight, dude.
When they get to 0 HP, they get to stay alive for one extra round because they're too angry to die.
Interesting.
And that's what
he is like. He seems so angry.
Right.
Like, I was like, yo, how are you so like? There's Eminem anger. He has like Eminem level anger, like,
but in a roid body.
In a roid body, yeah, in an Italian stallion body.
When Izzy was just like front kicking him in the face and he just like kept coming forward, I was kind of just like, oh, he's got that orc tenacity, buddy. Yeah. Like he's a creature, and I just think that Whitaker of 2022 has a hard time finishing him, whereas 2019 Whitaker fucking dusted him in the second round.
And Robert Whitaker has, like, I love his karate boxing evolution. Karate box. Like, but it's very fundamental boxing, and it's a lot of karate, you know? And I think that what he will also do is he will keep himself right in front of Vettori more. But, as I say, it's kind of like he's going to keep himself where Vettori will make a mistake, not on tightness, but he will get him to open up on a hook that Robert will slide from and like start counter. We're going to see some counters happen early.
Not easy to take Robert Whitaker down.
Not easy to take him down. People forget he is like
he's on the national wrestling team for Australia.
Yeah, Australia is not known for its wrestling, but he's an Olympic. Like he's like technically. He's trained with the Australian Olympic team, and they wanted him to wrestle.
Same guys who went on to the Olympics.
Exactly.
He was going to be on the Commonwealth team, which is kind of like the next step down.
Yeah, and you know, so
the UFC said no.
Yeah. And I think Marvin Vettori is going to show like he could, you know. And here's the thing. You could catch Whitaker and knock him out. Like, I don't know. Like, you don't think so? You don't
Whitaker sorry, Vittori's not known for catching guys and
here's the thing. Like, the more I watch MMA, it's also just like one of those things of like, I still always look at that huge X factor. Like, I tell people,
of course,
I never have an issue cornering a kickboxing or boxing match. I always have issues cornering MMA fights because you never know what the fuck will happen.
I lost $200 on a fight where a guy got his fucking foot stuck in the cage and got finished by Jorge Masvidal. So trust me when I say I know the X factor is there always, you know. But I just don't.
You don't see it like I don't.
It's not reasonable for me to predict.
Well, I say like Marvin will rock Whitaker in the first, and then he's going to do like I think what we saw happen in the Lowry Calderon fight, where Vettori will keep putting himself in that same range. And then Whitaker will
trying
be
to get it again.
Into that range, out of that range.
Trying to taste it again.
He's going to keep trying to pull him into that counter, I think. You know, I like seeing Vettori has been evolving a little bit, being with Rafael Cordero. But Cordero is still a go-forward motherfucker type of coach.
That's why Vettori went with him.
Exactly, because he likes that style. But I think that will play into his favor a little bit in the first. The second and third round, like, we get to Whitaker going, all right, I have to, like, Whitaker's a motherfucker. He is. And, you know, Izzy wants to coast and keep that belt. Like, you know, does he really? No. Like, yes, no. Kind of like a statement. Like, Izzy fights to keep the belt now, like everyone tends to do. And Whitaker is going to be fighting to try and get a shot back at that belt. So I think that we'll see, like, that second, third round is when I say, like, Whitaker's going to finish him TKO, probably standing TKO, falling over, ref pulling away, like, end of second or mid in the third.
Like, Vettori doesn't get knocked out. He just can't defend himself.
Just can't defend himself. Yeah. And it's going to happen, and, like, it's going to be one of those things where they look even until it's not. And you're going to see Vettori get put on that back pedal for, like, 10 seconds of him not defending himself, and then it's going to be his head bouncing off the cage wall. And, like, does that, like, it's going to be looking tooth and nail until it's not. And then it'll be a standing stoppage for Whitaker. That's what I see.
Speaking of shots at the belt, high-stakes heavyweight matchup at the main event between Cyril
This one, I'm here for the violence.
And Tai Tuivasa. Yeah.
I'm here for the violence.
I think that Tai Tuivasa is a tailor-made perfect matchup for Kanye West to do his thing and leg kick him into oblivion. But
I'm curious if Gane gets too comfortable on the cage wall.
I saw like
standing.
Yeah, because we saw that with Derek.
Tai Tuivasa throws a little bit, like, he's got that speed. He finds good openings. And I think that if Gane, like, takes him, because Gane has been known to put himself into the cage wall to find counters into elbows and stuff like that. So I wonder if he gets a little bit too comfortable and Ty can, pin him to that cage wall and just keep firing on him until he opens up.
I mean, I think that Ty is...
That's how I see Ty winning.
Ty is powerful enough to where if he touches anyone, he can knock them out. It's just a matter of how elusive can Gane be, and Gane's the most elusive heavyweight we've ever seen in the UFC, I think. So, I mean...
And Ty's great at building a wall of punches at heavyweight that a lot of people aren't comfortable with. Like, he builds a wall of strikes between you.
What a story from Ty. I mean, this guy got cut from the UFC, and now he's like one fight away from the belt, and he's fighting the guy who a lot of people thought were going to beat Francis.
See, and I agree, this is kind of tailor-made for Gane, but it's also a tailor-made swan song, or a tailor-made story for Tai Tuivasa. This is one of those fights where I'm like, it doesn't matter who wins, it's an epic win.
There is no,
but I feel like Ty has a more movie-esque moment in winning this, and he's gonna bring that in. Gane is a little too relaxed for someone like Ty.
Well, he's just been here too much.
Yeah,
he's been under the bright lights. He's been
a fighter his whole life. Gane is someone who was a European basketball star, or no, he wasn't. He was on the cusp of being it, but he wasn't that good at it. But then he's a freak athlete and found his way into MMA out of the Fight Factory gym in France. And he was Ngannou's training partner, which helps. So he's very coachable. But I think we could see an evolution in Tai Tuivasa's wrestling. I could see...
Yeah, Gane fucking sucks at fighting the grappling. We learned...
No, he finds some slip submissions for a big guy. It's not a finesse game, but I think, dude, we're going to see Ty beat him with an MMA fight.
He did not know how to put a frame on Ngannou.
Yeah,
he looked so horrible on the ground.
I think this is going to be a good showing.
It's one thing to rock someone and then climb on their back and choke them out. Yeah. That's not hard to do once you've already rocked them, but... It's another thing to sweep someone and then submit them.
Yes.
And Gane is not fucking doing that. So if Ty comes out there and
I think Ty wants to show in this fight that he is an MMA fighter.
That would be awesome.
I think, awesome. I mean, I hope so. This is me. This is where I hope that
Tyson Pedro's best friend just had a big win last night.
I always hope that fighter does the best thing they should. It's for both sides, to be honest. And that's why I love watching MMA, because who the fuck knows what's going to happen still, But I feel Ty could come out and really treat this like an MMA fight, and Gane's going to treat it like a striking match. Because what did Gane get ready for with Ngannou? A striking match that didn't happen. If Gane got ready for an MMA fight, and let's say we see him for him, you don't think so?
No one expected fucking
Ngannou to become a wrestler. And he showed
except me. I did call it exactly, but it was kind of a joke when I called it.
Hopefully we could see Cyril Gane show his improvements. Look, if we see Gane get up a couple times against Tai Tuivasa, Ty's going to be exhausted, and then Gane's going to take over the fight. But I'm kind of curious. I can see Tai Tuivasa winning in more ways than Gane, but don't get me wrong, Gane could also come out and just absolutely starch Ty off the bat. He has that ability. I don't think he has that type of dog in him. You have to be a special kind of crazy sometimes. Gane, I think, is too relaxed to come out and get Ty in the first round.
That is one thing that I don't think Gane has at all, which is that killer instinct. I don't think I've ever seen him display that.
Yeah,
because
he can just wake up and fight though. He has that ability, but
because things usually go his way.
Yeah,
things usually go his way. In the Ngannou fight,
there's a lot of little things that I want to see play out in this, but it also I could see Tai Tuivasa coming out and getting hit with a super fast counter off the bat because
I saw a Twitter post earlier that perfectly surmised how I feel about the fight, which is, of course, Cyril Gane is the better fighter, and it's his hometown, but I'm rooting for Ty because it will be funnier if he wins.
Also, exactly why I sometimes pick some fights where I'm it's going to be funnier if this person wins.
If Nate beats Khamzat, it'll be funnier than if Khamzat wins. So
that's the whole reason I want to see it happen.
Right, I want to see fucking Data's head turn into a full tomato. I just want to, like an old '90s Gushers commercial, just tomato head. Anyway, guys, that's it. UFC Paris going down this weekend early in the day, so be sure you tune in early. Lunchtime UFC, always nice. You get the night to yourself. I know I have plans that Saturday night. We'll be back next week covering the action at UFC Paris and going over the finishes and the results from which. If you're watching the show and you fought on Conflict 53, I'd just like to say congratulations and thank you so much for putting it all on the line for the entertainment of people of the Low Country and myself and Trevor. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy yourselves and the fights.